Hey, what's up, investors? My name is Devin Moreno, and I have 17 investment properties in and around the Baltimore City area. And today I'm actually talking with someone who is also interested in investing in the Baltimore City area. And he wants to talk about finding deals. We go into that, we go into how exactly I find deals, how I do so as a beginner, because it's going to be two different ways of actually doing that. So I go into detail with it. And if you're interested in joining me on one of these Zoom chats, just email me in the description below, and there we will coordinate a time for us to talk as well. And you get basically a free 30-minute session talking about whatever you want. So without further ado, let's go ahead into the session with Liam. Hey, Liam, thanks for joining me on this show today. So you said you had some questions about analyzing deals and finding deals. What specifically were you curious in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I appreciate you taking the time today, and I just had a few questions about specifically how you found your deals in your niche market. I know you're a pretty savvy investor, and I'm sure after a while people will start bringing deals to you. But if you had any advice on give to people trying to get into the industry, how would you go about finding or sourcing your first deal? What is the best way? Who are the best people to network with in order to, get you to that first deal? And then, another question would be analysis of your deals. What exactly are you taking into account when you're analyzing a deal? How in depth do you go? Do you go into are you looking at the appraisals, how much the appraisal fees, the inspection fees, anything like that? Exactly, could you explain how far in depth you go in your analysis of these properties?
All right. So I'm going to go with the first question you had, and then we'll move to the analysis part. But the first one you had was mentioning finding deals. So as we mentioned before on the phone call previously that we had, basically how I find deals today is extremely different from how I did it when I first started. So how I find them today, as you mentioned, a lot of them are brought to me. Honestly, I barely look for deals anymore. This is not very helpful for any new beginning investor, obviously, but my contractors bring me deals, as crazy as it sounds. There's wholesalers who have relationships with me because they know when I put an offer on a deal, I never back out. That's something actually helpful to a lot of new investors. If you back out of a wholesale contract, just imagine that person's probably going to be more hesitant to give you future deals. So whenever you put an offer on one with a wholesaler specifically, just understand that relationship that you're messing up. But because I didn't do that and I was careful to do that, a lot of them do bring me those deals first. And then partners, which obviously as a new beginner, you wouldn't really have any, but I do have business partners who own properties with me 50-50. And then they're the ones who find the deals because I actually don't like looking for them. And they'll find them in all the traditional ways like Redfin, scouring the millions of emails that we get from wholesalers. If you want millions of emails from wholesalers, actually, I guess this one will be good let's pivot this now into new investor territory. What did I do when I first started? What do I wish I did when I first started? One of the pieces of advice I would give is, so for the Baltimore, Maryland area specifically, which is where I invest, which is where you're thinking about coming into, there's a Facebook page called the Maryland Investor Network Facebook page. That Facebook page has 16,000 follower or members of it. And there's variations of it. There's the Maryland Investor Contract or Maryland Contractors Network, Maryland Wholesalers Network. What you do is you create a fake email address, not the one you usually use for anything, all right, a fake email address that you intend to be bombarded by spam, and then start putting your email as you're interested in the deals that you see. All right. So you're going to see people posting deals. And then you're just going to say, hey, I'm interested. It doesn't matter. Even if you never looked at the property in your life. But what's going to happen is all these wholesalers are going to start spamming your email, not just the person who posted it, but other wholesalers who just want your attention. So they're going to grab all these email addresses and create an email list, and then they'll just start sending you deals. Now, I will advise you that, especially to a new investor, 80% at least, and I feel like I'm being generous here, 80% of those are garbage. A lot of the deals being handed out are being given out by other new wholesalers who don't know how to analyze deals, or advanced experienced wholesalers whom kind of go by this motto of there's a sucker born every day.
Right.
And so we'll get into that in the analysis side of your question about how exactly I filter that out. But just be aware that the shopping list you see with these wholesalers is no different than the ones you see on Redfin, Zillow, or whatnot. When people talk about off-market deals, it's not necessarily wholesalers. Some people think of off-market as just simply off the MLS.
Right.
I think of off-market as you are the only one who knows about this deal. That's it. So when it's shopped around all over the place, those ones it's just a new market. You're just now in this different market is all you're in.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. A lot of my best deals were off-market deals, yes, but nobody else had a chance to bid for them because I was talking directly to the seller. So we'll get into that as well. So that's the step number one. Now I say 80% are garbage. Why would you look there? Well, I mean, it's just like same thing. There's a good chunk of them that are good. And also remember, I'm caveating to a new investor, they're garbage. A lot of those deals I can make work that you can't. Maybe my renovation costs were a lot cheaper than yours because I've been in the industry longer. Maybe I can get the deal done faster. Maybe I can negotiate it better than you can. Maybe I have access to money you don't have. So those things, that's why I say to a new investor, 80% of them are not going to work. And that's just a number, by the way. It's not like you can't look it up.
Yeah. So, yeah. But it's good. No, that's good to that's good to know.
So that's the first step I did to finding deals. The second step, often you're trying to target a particular type of deal, and you want to know what that specifically is, because wholesalers are going to ask you this question when you meet them up at these meetups and RIAs, which I'll get into next. But when you meet up with them, they're going to ask you, what kind of properties are you looking for? And then you'll say a comment, hopefully not this comment, but might say something like, oh, I'm looking for a good deal. What does that even? It doesn't mean anything. So you have to kind of know what you're looking for. So I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet that I found over the course of my renovations about the different types of properties. And okay, here's what each one that I'm looking for. So long-term buy and holds that are Section 8 within the city. That is one of the crown jewels of this city. That's the reason a lot of people go to it, is because Section 8 is all over the place. Baltimore has a very strong rental market. It's like, I think over 50% of the city is renters, and there's not enough quality housing to house all of them. So your supply is very high. And when you have guaranteed rent coming from these Section 8, or when I call it Section 8, really I should say voucher, these program tenants, those are the ones. Those you can buy in mass. You can buy them all over the place. Just snatch them up all over the city. And that's one tactic investors will do. And we'll get into analyzing those, but those make you the least amount of cash flow. You need to buy a lot of them. Oftentimes the average cash flow after you burr out of them is generally like $300 that you're getting. It's not a lot of money. You got to kind of, and that's the thing about them is you buy these ones, and these houses are the ones below the $150,000 threshold. And by the way, I am being super generalistic here. Obviously, if investing is this simple, then
you gotta you gotta put numbers to these things so we can talk about it.
Exactly. So a lot of them will ask you, like, are you looking for turnkey rentals, or are you looking for, you can say burr, a lot of them might understand that, but realistically fix and flip rentals with an ARV under 150. Okay. So now you're telling them a new number that they can work with. Oh, okay. You want these neighborhoods. That's what you're looking for. And so then you can even get more detailed, cosmetic rehab, stuff like that. And this all will feed into your analysis part of my question as well. So, but you got to buy a lot of these. I will admit, I personally am not a fan of this. Why? It's my personal preference. It has nothing to do with it not working. There are millionaire real estate investors in Baltimore City. They made it work. I'm not a fan. And so the reasons are personal and specific to me, but it's a strategy that works. So, okay, that's one that you can look for. The one I often will preach a lot in starting out is duplexes. So duplexes do exactly the same thing, but they double that cash flow metric. For those of us who have full-time jobs, I'd rather manage one property that's cash flowing double than two. And the best part about duplexes specifically is duplexes are often priced about the same as your single family homes, and often mislabeled and miscategorized, or are easily converted into what I'll call a duplex conversion, or an illegal duplex, if we want to call it that. That's up to you on how you want to do it, but a lot of them are easily kind of structured that way.
All right.
So, and I manage a few. They're really no big deal that the panel, there's one panel, and it's up to you. I leave that one up to you. But duplexes, that's so basically you're buying the same house for the same price, but now doubling the amount of revenue coming in. And
Right.
then, obviously the other deals that you could be looking for, we're not going to talk about flips unless you are talking about flips. All right. Is that something you're interested in?
More of the buy and hold, but using it for passive income.
Okay.
More like you said, a fix and flip, but for a rental property, or more of a turnkey little work rental unit. Yeah.
Then so basically then we'll ignore flips. Flips kind of enter a whole new realm of things that will, maybe in another video. But basically, yeah, you can't do Airbnbs in the city easily. I have 2, so not necessarily entry, but you can do it. I have 2. So the law is you can only have 1 in your own name. I have 1 in my own name.
So let me ask you a question. How does that go with the mortgage? How does that go down with the mortgage company? And how do you get out? How is that structured? Is that structured as an investment property? Because you have to live. I know if you were going to do like a house hack, maybe you'd have to live in the house for a certain amount of time. So how is that structured? Is that as an investment property?
So they have to be in your own name.
Okay.
We'll just very quickly touch on this, but yeah, they have to be on your own name. They have to be, so Baltimore defines it as it must be your permanent residence. Permanent residence is defined for them as a primary, basically the one that you're living in. The IRS terms it as 180 days or more, or at least 180 days. So I think it's 181. The city defines it. I forgot how many days a year you have to visit it, or at least be there.
Okay.
But usually declaring it to the city as your primary residence is normally enough. How do you declare it to the city? I mean, usually obviously you're not filing a form with the city telling them what your primary residence is, but usually if you have, like, let's say you get challenged and you have the information available, like, hey, look, the BG is in my name, all the stuff's in my name, I'm paying it, I lived here, I come here, even on my tax returns, this is my primary, then okay, they usually will go with it. But most importantly, it's just got to be in your own name. The property, the title has to be in your name. That's the risk of it, right? You can only have 1. You can technically have 2, but one of them has to be kind of inactive in a sense. And then you have the grandfathered in ones. So if you get lucky enough to buy a house that's grandfathered in before the law came into place, then those active operate. And that's one that I have. So that's why I say, like, I have 2, but people are often confused how the hell I pulled that off. It's a grandfathered in.
Yeah,
that's good. So basically, yeah, that's just for that side. It's hard to make that work. It's really specific for house hacking. House hacking, you're going to know often. So we're talking about looking for deals. I'll try to segue right back to that before we get into those analysis. Looking for deals on house hacking is often easier with a realtor. So now here's where I'm going to talk about that. And by the way, realtors have found me deals. Half of my deals are from the MLS. Do not think you can't get deals off the MLS. You can look on Redfin and absolutely find deals just the same way you can with the wholesalers. And I found a couple of them through realtors who pitched me the deal first because they knew I would perform on the deal. Remember, a lot of these realtors, they get paid commission for you purchasing the deal. I've also managed to use realtors in such a way where I use them as, like, for example, dual agency clauses. A lot of people, because I don't have a specific realtor that is tied to me, I can actually confront the seller's agent and say, hey, I will can you represent me as the agent? Some agents will do it, some agents won't. But if they do, if you buy the house and they know you're serious, they get 6% commission or whatever commission if they give it to somebody else. So I'm not saying that the realtors are purposely choosing you, but we are all humans and we operate based on certain principles, incentivization. Exactly. So it's going to push things in your favor. So you can get things from realtors. They will send you information. MLS. MLS, usually what you're doing is, like, so let's use the duplex example that I just mentioned. Usually what I'll look for is I'll type in, like, single family home, 1,500 square feet or more with, let's say 4-bed, 2-bath. Let's say something like that. Why am I doing that? The reason I'm doing that is because 1,500 square feet for that size house, generally, a lot of them will be actually duplexes. They're going to be 2-bed, 1-bath, 2-bed, 1-bath kind of split, but mislabeled as a single family property. Other one, there are a lot of them mislabeled. Well, remember, like, being a realtor, there's so many of them out there, and a lot of them actually will mess up the MLS listing. So a lot of them are mislabeled. So often look for 4.2 or 6 3, or, these kind of like varied patterns, because then there'll be like a 3-bed, 2-bath kind of thing, and then 2-1, or whatever. If you do that math, 5-3, whatever. So basically, a lot of them be mislabeled, but also sometimes you'll look for ones where, and I actually just did a video on this, where you can see the value add, where, like, let's say I look for a house that I find a house that's let's go with it, 1,500 square feet, and it says it's 2-bed, 1-bath. Something is wrong there. Even if it's 2-bed, 2-bath, something is wrong there. That is way too big a house to have only 2 beds. There's something missing. What's good about that for me is that means that I know I can get with my voucher. So let's say I want to go that voucher strategy. I can find more bedrooms that will support a higher rent amount for those voucher tenants. You can also convert this in a bunch of different ways, but that's the 2 main ways of finding deals before you build up your network. Now let's talk about building up your network, and then we'll jump into analysis, and then that's it. So
thank you.
Building up your network, I would recommend the Bear Investor Network page has meetups every second Monday of the month. I would recommend going there, not necessarily, even if you don't need to see the meetup for the person who's speaking, even if you don't care about that, go anyway. Meeting people in this business is this is a people business. I really think that, like, there's some investors who would say, oh, it's not, you can do it without people. And that's true to a degree. You can do it without interacting with people, but it is so much easier if you have a lot of alliances on your side. And that is how I got to where I am today, where now I'm so overwhelmed by good deals. A lot of times I've had to pass up on them because you can go broke buying too many good deals, which sounds really, really weird, but you can run out of, if your capital's not constantly feeding the machine. That's the 3 main ways that I can say it, as far as, like, in the time frame that we have now, finding deals. The other way is go to your renovation site. So when you actually start getting renos, people are going to walk up to your renovation site and ask you questions. They're going to talk to your contractors. You can get your contractors kind of aligned with you. They'll tell you about it. And a lot of people don't want to sell on the market. They don't trust realtors, or whatever the reason is. And a lot of times they'll come up to you, and this has happened to me a number of times, where they'll say, like, hey, I see you're renovating this house. It looks nice. Are you interested in buying mine? I'm not, I don't want to sell out yet. A lot of, I'm not going to say there's a correlation here, but it's usually older folk for some reason. They don't, anyone over 60, they just kind of don't want to put it on the market. They don't want to go through that. So they're kind of hoping you just take it, and they don't trust, like, the bandit signs that are all over the place. So whatever reason it is.
That's totally,
This is where you hear the whole driving for dollars and all that. I personally hate the idea of driving for dollars and riding around. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't. I just don't do it. But yes, being boots on ground, being present will make you approach find deals. So, that's really the simplicity of it. I would say that networking aspect, getting yourself onboarded, and really, here's the key thing. If I can lead off with this, and actually this goes into analyzing deals a little bit. I can't teach how to analyze a deal on this little bit of an episode here, but basically, you learning how to analyze deals, just start analyzing them. This is the one area I swear, if more new investors did this, they would find a lot of immediate success. Just learn how to analyze deals. Just keep analyzing deals. Practice that. And then what's going to happen is yes, you'll get better at analyzing deals, but what's going to happen is you're going to see prices in certain neighborhoods. And because you've already analyzed 3, 4, 5 houses in that neighborhood, you already know what the ARV is. You already know you already understand it. And so it just is like, you don't even have to barely look at the deal to be like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Like, so for example, I like duplexes. I see Federal Street come up. I'm like, oh, let me look at that. You're like, what's up with Federal Street? But I know Federal Street has a ton of duplexes. Why? Because I've analyzed the area so many times. I like certain neighborhoods because I've analyzed the area so many times. And so this is the one thing, if you can just practice that skill, this will be so much less overwhelming, because now you just see neighborhoods, you instantly know whether you're interested or you're not. But the problem with it is, so many people wear out. They analyze, they don't even analyze 50 deals before they're just like, man, this is boring. And it is. It's extremely boring.
I'm a very I love I'm going to sound like a nerd, but I do enjoy numbers, and I do enjoy, like, making those Excel sheets. Like, people are going to be like, it's so nerdy, but I don't know. There's some certain.
It's a skill that'll come in handy in this business.
Yeah, for sure.
I make a ton of Excel spreadsheets. I use one to show you how to analyze deals, and those episodes are about 40 minutes long, and I can't even cover how to analyze the whole deal. I have to like skip parts. Okay. But for this video today, analyzing a deal, here's what I can say. Make sure your revenues are double your mortgage. In my opinion, I never buy a house unless my revenues double my mortgage. There are certain outlier exceptions to that. Like, so for example, if you're in the LA area, I know we're talking about Baltimore, but this is just an example. Like doubling your revenue over mortgage is like impossible. DC, another metric where like, okay, that's kind of impossible. That you have to be creative there. That's why I go to rooming houses. A lot of my houses are $500,000 homes in Baltimore City. Those should not be able to cash flow. They do because they're rooming houses. Maybe the Airbnb concept you have. One of my Airbnbs is exclusive to traveling nurses, long-term traveling nurses. I should be renting this house for $1,700, but it now rents for minimum $2,500 a month because of what I did. Mortgage is $1,000. So I shouldn't have been able to double my revenue over mortgage, but now I just did. And that's after expenses, cleaning and all that. So the 2,500. So it's a net number. The 2,500 is what I'm receiving in my pocket. So basically, yeah, because more than that, it's like around 32 or whatever. But long story short, you get the idea. Is sometimes you have to be creative to make that number work. But if you do not double your revenue over the mortgage, then what's going to happen is after you buy 2 or 3 or 4, what if one of them stops paying? Your other houses can hold up the one that is not paying. That's number one. Number two, you can make yourself a nice landlord. Now you can fix shit and you're not arguing with your tenant all the time about little things because you're not making any money. Now you're making so much revenue that when they're like, you're the good landlord. You're the like, oh yeah, he fixes everything. He's great. Like, because you're making so much money, profit is so key in this industry. If you are not making profit, you will fall apart. And that might sound like a greedy thing for anyone who's never been in business, for anyone who's never heard of it. You must make ample amounts of profit because you're going to lose a ton of it. So, and then you got to make it still justify you being in business after that point, right? Yeah, that's why I say, is it worth it? Yeah, that's why I say it cash flows $300 a month on these vouchers. Those I am talking about renting for $1,500, mortgage is $750. Most people see profit or the revenue minus the mortgage. Oh, that's my profit. I'm taking that home. I'm going to go shopping. You make $300. You just don't know it.
No, right? Exactly.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of non-investor landlords, they fail, is they don't take that into account. I take everything into account. So you ask me, what do I take into account? It's all of that stuff, every expense. And honestly, I'll even factor in little things like, we'll just put in my pro formas like lead inspections, rental inspections. I mean, you got to do that every year. You got to do, these little things. Now, what happens to your cash flow over time? It increases because after you fix all the issues and you have a long-term tenant, it really, like, not a lot happens. I don't hear from most of my houses in most months. Sometimes I'm like, are you guys still alive? Like, just make sure they're still okay. But yeah, I mean, so you don't hear, like, after you fix all the stuff, that initial, here's what the last thing I'll leave you with actually for analyzing deals. When you first buy a house, I don't care how gorgeous it looks, you will have problems. I guarantee you, whoever is selling that house knew you're not going to find it on the initial inspection, the home inspection. They know you're not going to find it. You're going to find it when you move into it, when you move people into it, and you're going to have a lot of issues right from the start. I do not care what, the situation that you're going to have issues. It could be a beautiful brand new flip, totally brand new everything. You will have issues. And so make sure to shore up your funds for that initial impact. After that, it does kind of go away. But I notice a lot of new investors, that's one of the first things they complain about is like, oh man, I bought this brand new flip, but all these things are wrong with it. So much for brand new. And I'm like, no, that's every house. I don't even care if you flipped it. You could have renovated the house and did all the work yourself. You're going to face issues as soon as you move that tenant into the house. So it's not like someone's trying to scam you or throw it. You just can't experience it until you've lived there. And then all the mistakes start showing up, all the neighborhood elements that you didn't take into account, all these things will start popping up. And that's when you end up dealing with them. So, but we'll get into more of that analysis in future videos. And actually, if for anyone who's watching and you're interested, I guess, look up my deal analysis videos, and I go into much like spreadsheets and all that, and like, here's how I'm breaking it down.